Hey, how's it going? Video request time. So, request. If you were to become a rapper, what do you think your rap style would be like? Also, when you were stoned, I'm pretty stoned now. Does your inner does your inner monologue ever bust freestyles? Um, yeah. If I was to become a rapper, yeah, I want to be a rapper. That's like my whole deal. That's my whole MO, man. Rapper is I'm kind of making it broad termed here. Oldest profession in the world. I study a lot of history and a lot of Roman and Greek history, and the art of oratory was really one of the big things back in those. It was the big thing back in those days. And they had gesticulations that went along with it, like all of like handwriting. Sign language. They had sign language basically, and so you would learn the sign language. Whoever did the sign language with the most, like comedic timing. This guy has good comedic timing. If you could do the sign language with good comedic timing, or not good comedic timing, but good timing with your oratory, and you knew all the signs, and you could be extremely. Because they talked about it. They talked all about the different ways that people were good oratories, and some, in ways some guys were and some guys weren't. If you could do it in a way that was like very passionate but not forced, you know what I mean? This kind of stuff. And if you could have a strong voice, they strengthen their voice. And of course the pentamic hexameter, memorizing, if you could memorize whole speeches. And it makes sense to think about it because back in those days you would, like in ancient Greece, people, I don't know if people realize, but, it wasn't like, ancient kingdom, like all organized and stuff. It was like just a bunch of people, a bunch of tribes. And so if you were the guy who could stand up on top of the rock and like convince people, there were, then you could get ahead in life, and not just in winning the leadership, but this is everything, like law. There is an example of some orator, and I think he was known as the greatest orator of Greece or whatever. But he, when he was young, I guess his parents died, and so he had his guardians, whoever that was, didn't say who it was, maybe his uncle or whatever, but they took his inheritance from him, and then he became of age, and they didn't give his inheritance back. They're like, oh no, that's ours. What are you talking about? And so because they didn't really have writing, it was just kind of like your lawn and that guy's lawn would be this rock, and you would defend it by just making sure everybody knew that, and so he tried to, he was going to try to get his possessions back by just getting up, I guess when there was a forum or whatever, when everybody was there for whatever reason, for the election or for people speaking, because they had engagements. He got up and he was like, "Hey, I want to give my speech. They took my shit." And everybody laughed at him, and he was like, "What? Oh no!" So even if you're right, if you're not a good speaker, you don't even legally have your possessions. You have to be able to defend it with your mouth, with it verbally. And so he went and studied with, I guess, the greatest. This is in Athens, the greatest like oratory teacher or whatever. And he studied for like 6 months, practicing the strength of his voice and the passion in his, and then he went and he did it again. He did a really good job, and he got his stuff back. And then he became like the greatest orator. So that's kind of how I view rapping. Kids who rap these days are trying to say something. They're trying to give forth a message. And in the beginning, maybe it was just about the rap, but then of course it always evolves, into saying something. Because in the beginning, you do what you can, and if they don't know anything to rap about, you just rap about yourself and stuff. But then you eventually take it to the next level. There's always the next level to everything, and so that's the next level, I think, and I'm sure it's getting there now. I haven't been following it for the last few years, but so if you can, and if you can get across thoughts, like people write books because they write articles because they're trying to organize their thoughts into a clear and concise way so that you can get like high octane, more bang for your buck, trying to get your message across, like get as many thoughts across in a short amount of time in a way that people are going to absorb it the most, just like in the good old days. And so the best way to do that, like back in the good old days, they would remember rhymes, and that was to help memorize, but also to help bring songs so you could mix music in with it. And also to make it sound good, and also to have passion and everything, and enliven people, like a rock song or something. And in the present, you would rhyme. I think for the same thing, like when you have something rhyme, that means you're setting it into stone, and you can say it over and over and over again. Now, if you saying, like in the past, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you would say stuff over and over again, and it would just be the rhyme, and it would be silly or whatever. But if you have to say it over and over again, you would feel like an idiot. If you consider yourself a smart person, like, why am I not saying something smart? So the idea of putting something in a rhyme that sounds good and set in stone, but is actually a message with a whole lot of data and explanation, you can say that over and over again with so much passion because you actually believe it and it makes sense. That you could say it, for 20, 30 years, and then it keeps getting, and then it becomes like a whole, like shouting, you're not even thinking, it's just you're shouting it, and you're just letting forth truth out of your whole, like using all of your energy to just, and you're not even, because it's kind of those songs that, it's not a dead end song, it's a song that'll get more and more strong, gain more and more strength, and become legendary, because then it could become a piece of history, a teaching of history of what everybody needed to know, needed to learn at that point in time. Like this song came out in this year, and he was saying this thing and giving these, instructions and explaining these things because that's what everybody needed to hear. And then people hear it like 500 years in the future, and they're like, oh wow, they needed to hear that, And then you could hear the passion, feel the passion of the song, especially if you hear it like in a concert with people yelling and stuff, and it could be a part of history. There's this one song, I think it was called "The Flight of the Valkyries." Didn't they play it in Apocalypse Now when the helicopters were coming in? Dun 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 dun. Anyway, when they played that for the first time in Germany in like 1860, like everybody in the hall flipped out. Like they were screaming and jumping through the hallways. It was like a rock concert. It was like a new invention, And so, and if you listen to that song, it can kind of take you back in history and make you kind of, understand how a song like that could make people freak out. Like, oh, maybe it's because they didn't have that kind of music until then. You would study the music before then. You go, oh wow, and then it would actually bring you back to that period, and you could understand the period. And so, having songs and passionate songs like that, and singing it like that, can have lots of different uses. One of them being the teaching of in history of how people used to be in the past with emotion, and as well as the information. Because emotion is where music and songs and rapping is from. It's kind of the mixture of intellect and emotion. The intellect would be the words, and the emotion would be rapping them, with your voice and the emotions that you could throw out, and even the dancing and the music and everything with the song. And so that's what I would like to do. Like, because you don't need to be particularly like physically fit to do that. Like people get old and their voices get a little bit crackly, but if you're the type of singer who's a rapper, you don't really need a nice voice, And actually, I'm going to have a really nice voice when I'm really old because I sing all the time. Ooh, like that. And so I have a strong throat. And but you don't need to be a good singer to be a rapper. You just need to be able to pronounce the words and to get them out. And old people can do that. Like my wife's dad was like 60 or whatever, and his voice was so strong, like he could break. I never saw him, but he could break glass probably. Like your ears would hurt. You could hear him from like 2 blocks away. I mean, it was like so. If you can do that, then that's singing. You just ba 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 ba, and like an old person, their minds are still sharp. A lot of their minds are still sharp enough, and especially even if your mind isn't sharp, like you could be like Alzheimer's, and you could just remember the song by rote and remember the emotion, and everybody would think that you're still got your shit together, and be like, "Wow, man, you still got your shit together, old man." And you'd be like, "Huh? Who are you?" And we're like, "Oh, right, he remembered it. He remembered it by heart." So but yeah, but to make the perfect song. See, people try to find that perfect song, that perfect sound, to be the one hit wonder, make that money, or get their shoe in the door or whatever. And they try it with like the beat, the catch, do. But why don't you? But like that has a limit of how deep you can actually dig in your research and your art and science of making a really good song. Because it doesn't end there. Making a really good song, it can be like flying to the moon. It can be the result of just years and years in research. It just boiled down to a tiny little golden nugget, So, I mean, like the words, you could just to have a song that's has the perfect message, and it can mix a perfect beat. You just work at it. And then, yeah, you have your message. And imagine making the album of the whole message. One song leads to another, and then like singing can be like a like exercise. You try to sing your whole album, and then you have an actual dance to it. So yeah, that's the kind of rapper I'd want to be. I'd want to be like a preacher rapper. Like an orator. I'd go up there like in my robe even, dressed like in the ancient Roman days. Oh, and I learned the gesticulations. Like I've never heard of a book that actually has the gesticulations, but if they do have it, it'd be cool to learn the ancient Roman gesticulations, and because then people could learn. Because that's kind of becoming a revival now. I did a video, talked about a video just yesterday. Somebody said they wanted to do a video quest because people are like reenacting like sacrifices and stuff and ancient biblical sacrifices and rites and rituals in ancient in Jerusalem and Israel, just because, and so yeah, why not do the ancient, like the Roman style speaking, only you're doing their gesticulations and your own words, and then you're trying to, and you could even do it in the same way that they would have speeches against the other guy. They were called Philippics because the first one was against Philip, the father of Alexander the Great, just talking trash about some dude. Because the rappers love to do that. They talk trash about each other. So you do the Philippics. You go over there, and but not like in the stupid way they do it now, where they kind of take off what the other guy said and they turn it around on him. Well, that's not stupid. It's cool, but it's witty. It's smarter than me. But I mean something more political, like where they would speak for longer, for like an hour, like back in the day, when Lincoln and that other guy Burr or whoever it was were running for president. They would have their debates for like 3 hours straight, So you'd have rapper debates like that. Or not debates, rapper show-offs. Because you'd already know what you're going to say. You just, oh, really? I know the perfect song for that. Bam! And then it's like, wow, that motherfucker's really got his fucking thoughts boiled down if he's got all of these concepts that everybody needs to know, especially his opponent. Boiled down to a song? Holy shit. Then maybe in the future you could have like presidential debates is like rap downs, So, yeah, I'd like to make one, but that's kind of, but like my philosophy about that is like, if you're going to make the perfect rap song, maybe you got to be like ready for it, So maybe I'll study my history and then I'll know everything and I'll be all smart and then I'll be like, I'm ready for that motherfucking rap song because I'll have all my thoughts all organized already, So when you feel it, you make the song. But if you're not feeling it, you don't make the song. It's kind of like, I think artists tell you that ancient, like George Michael used to feel it back in the 50s or 80s, made all those good songs, and then he just wasn't feeling it anymore. He was like, I don't know, feeling it, I just want to smoke weed. I don't know, I'm not, the muse goes away. Same thing happens to athletes, There's some baseball player, he was like the best ever, then he played a game and he just he struck out, couldn't do shit, and he just quit after that because he was, I don't know, just lost it. So it can happen the same thing, but then you can suddenly gain it again. So with the rapping, so I think that's how it is. It's just the wind. It's the muse, That's why it's called the muses. All right. Peace out.